Okay, so last year, I can admit that I added a lot of sugar and I was very gentle with how I put the messaging out there. And this year, it was cayenne pepper and directness.
Welcome to the Jackie Ray Show.
Welcome back to the Jackie Ray Show. I'm, of course, your host, Jackie Ray. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. I hope you had a fantastic holiday season. And if you didn't, I hope it gets better for you in the new year. I'm really excited to do this podcast. It's going to be short and sweet. I know I've said that before, and then it's really long, but I'm going to do my best to make this one short and sweet because this is a fantastic moment in my evolution as a journalist, especially as an independent journalist. So I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about me as a journalist. I technically knew very early on that I wanted to be a journalist, probably in middle school. But what sealed it for me was my freshman year in high school. We had just moved to a all-white neighborhood. We were the first black family in this all-white community. My high school was 90% white. And so it was a struggle to really have our voices heard about things that we wanted to see in our school. And then there was an incident that happened. It wasn't a big incident. Let me just be clear about that. But, you know, in that situation, predominantly white high school, white kids, you know, battling black kids, the media came out. No one was hurt though. Let me just be clear about that. And when they came out, they interviewed everyone, teachers, staff, all white though, but turned to us and was like, you know, peace out and drove away. And that was the moment I was like, you know, that'll never happen again on my watch. I will make sure that I can get information from my community, help be a voice for my community. And if I can, shine a light on their voices so much so that we can implement change in our school. And it worked. It brought us together. We moved a lot differently. It's crazy to go back and see that school now because now it is predominantly black and it's like, wow, this would have been so much better when I was a kid. But, you know, it's fine. So that was the moment I realized the power of journalism, the power of the written word, and the power of journalists to bring the community together. And then after that, it was off to the races for me. I've done everything. I've done sports, I've done crime, I've done community news, obviously. Obviously, I have a love for the WNBA and sports. So I've done a lot of that. But with sports specifically, I often say that sports is a microcosm of society, meaning that sports is basically a mirror. It reflects back to us what our society is. So there was no surprise to me that as we as a society, largely because of the times that we live in politically, we are starting to lean more and more into racism and white supremacy, so much so that we're trying to make certain things okay. And so it was no surprise to me that we had an influx of new fans that came into the WNBA over the last 2 years who embrace white supremacy and racism and homophobia. It wasn't a surprise to me because, again, sports is a microcosm, a mirror of our society. So here in Long Beach, for me, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. parade is our microcosm. It's our mirror, especially for the Black community. It reflects back to us what is happening in our society. And historically, that has been watering down the needs of Black people, flat out overlooking the needs of Black people, or figuring out a way to say, look, we did things for people of color instead of specifically addressing the needs of Black people. And we have neglected the park that the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park has been historically neglected. We've neglected that community, and we have intentionally left Black excellence, Black history, and Black pride out of the narrative around the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. parade. And I feel like that is an absolute mirror as to what is happening politically and socially in Long Beach. Now, you can argue that till the cows come home, but I'm telling you, I've done a plethora of stories that I can show you that back up that narrative. So last year specifically, we had the same thing. Now I'm going to post a link to that story because I did a full story on that with the grand marshals. I forget how many of them there were, but only one of them was Black. Now the organizer of that event argued that since Polly and Wilson, who were champions at the time, were honored in that parade, the Black students and Black athletes, the Black student athletes and the Black coaches, there were plenty of Black marshals, grand marshals in that parade. But to say that, you are downplaying a couple of things. One, it is customary to have the high school champs in a parade. I've been doing this a long time, y'all. It happens all the time. That is a customary practice more than an intentionality. So not giving you a pass for that, number one. And number two, when you're talking about grand marshals in the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. parade, these should be people who highlight and exemplify what he stood for, which again was the Black liberation. Black liberation is what he stood for. And so then I went and I asked her, I was like, okay, I'm not going to give you that pass. So I did. We have a correspondence back and forth. And I said, who of the non-Black grand marshals you have, who has gone out of their way to be a positive impact in the Black community? Which, by the way, every single grand marshal who is honored in the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. parade should have a laundry list of things that they have done specifically to elevate the Black community. Y'all can argue that amongst yourselves, but that is a non-negotiable for me. If we are talking about a Black man and his commitment to Black people, that should be exemplified in the grand marshals. But she did say that this couple had always opened their doors to Black nonprofits in the city and never denied them access when they needed meetings. And I said, you know what, that's great. But why didn't we honor the Black nonprofits? Who are the Black nonprofits? Why didn't we feel the need to lift them up? And instead of responding that, she sent an email to my editor complaining about the story. And I think that was the first sign that I had that, okay, my dad taught me this a long time ago, and you've probably heard a lot of people say this, but Black faces in high spaces don't necessarily change things for you. And on top of that, my dad always told me people treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So if we have leaders in rooms who choose to say this is better than it was last year, or this is good enough, or I'm just happy to be here, then we slow down progress. There's no way in 2026 I should still be talking about this. Absolutely no way, full stop, it shouldn't be happening. But we are. Here we are. So around, I want to say top of November, I received a call from someone who was on the entertainment committee. And I received that call because of comments that I had given at the Human Equity and Relations Committee meeting. And what I said at that time is the same thing I'm saying before you now. We live in a society that we forget that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting for the liberation of Black people with the understanding that Black liberation would help everybody. And instead, we've watered his message down to people of color, knowing that Black people are always left out of that narrative. That was the video I posted. That was what prompted interaction between myself and a committee member. And the message was, this is exactly what's happening behind the scenes with the MLK parade right now. And I said, cool, do you want to talk about it? Like, let's get it on record. What you want to do? I didn't receive any correspondence until maybe it was later in the month. It was probably a couple of days before I received a text message about the Grand Marshals. I sat down, we talked. To be honest, it just sounded like the same old to me. The same old overlooking, the same old, we're going to make it look like we want you to shape this the way you want. But at the end of the day, it's going to look like we want it to look. It sounded the same to me. So I wasn't necessarily triggered by that. I received a text message about nominating people for Grand Marshals. I sent it out to a few people. And then that was on November 20th. Yeah, November 20th, roughly. And then on December 10th, I saw it on Suley Saro's page. Again, that's the 6th District Councilwoman. I saw it on her page with a message that said the deadline is December 15th. And I was like, dang, that's pretty quick. So I started texting people. I text 12 people in my network and said, hey, did you receive an email, a text message, or did you see it on Saro's page about the Grand Marshals? Of the people that I sent it to, only 2 people had received the text message, and both of them received it from the same person that I received it from. Let me be clear. I think that's great that the people on the committee were sending the text messages to their network, because they sent it to me. I could have sent it to more people, but I was literally doing an experiment to see how many other people got this. But that's the goal. You send it to me, I send it to my network, someone in my network sends it to theirs, and it grows like that. I've since learned that they only received 30 submissions back about the Grand Marshals, which speaks to it just wasn't advertised properly. It wasn't on the city's page. I didn't see it on any other city council pages. I didn't see it on the City of Long Beach page. I didn't see it anywhere except for those, I think, 1 or 2 posts that I saw on Suley Saro's page, but it was kind of too late at that point. So again, I was like, yep, the par for the course. I still didn't react because this is just what it is. I didn't react until I received, it was sent to me. I can't remember who sent it to me, but the message said, have you seen this? And it was the commercial for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. parade. And it had 2 committee members and Dr. Suley Saro. I am not going to get a copyright infringement. So if you want to see the full video, the link to that is posted below. You can see that. But they didn't even say the word black in that commercial. This commercial was a very well-produced commercial. It was produced by LBTV. I thought they did a fantastic job as far as the filming of it. These are things that catch my eye. But it felt like a well-produced slap in the face. And so I reached out to Dr. Suley Saro's office and I asked her, and I'm just going to read a portion of this email that I sent to her. And I said, and I complimented her. I did open, and it was to Suley Saro and the 2 people that were in the video. Dear Dr. King celebration organizers, congratulations on the release of the announcement for this year's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. The effort to address concerns raised about previous events is noted and appreciated. So I'm going to fast forward through this. And I said, aside from identifying Darick Simpson as board president of the African American Cultural Center, the announcement makes no explicit reference to Black excellence, Black history, Black pride, or the profound and lasting impact Black residents have had on the city of Long Beach. Given the purpose of this celebration, I am requesting clarification on the following, with the requested response no later than December 31st, with a story publishing on January 1st. The questions were, why were these elements omitted from the promotional messaging? Was this omission intentional? Should the public expect the tone of the actual celebration to reflect the language used in the announcement? So aside from acknowledging receipt of that email, Dr. Suley Saro has not responded, and I'm going to confirm that right now while we sitting here on this show. Yes, she has still not responded to that email. But I did get a response and found out, not from Dr. Suley Saro, but someone close to the situation, and found out that the script for that promotion came from Dr. Suley Saro's office. Now, I don't know if she wrote it. I don't know if her assistant wrote it, but I know it was a scripted production and people had to stick to the script, which means omitting Black excellence, Black pride, Black history, and the impact of Black people in Long Beach was in fact intentional. And that's when I was like, all right, yeah, no, I'm gonna go ahead and do a story about this. Because up until this point, I was like, I don't even have the energy because it's the same old, same old. But at this point, I was like, yeah, no, y'all are playing in the face of Black people. I'm gonna go ahead and do a story about this. So then when I said that, then I started getting text messages from specific individuals. One said, I don't even know why you would do a story, because if you do a story now, it might impact people. It might make them think, oh, I'm not going to go because they're already on the fence. That's what information does. It influences your choices, and you should be fully informed before you make a choice. Another person said, well, I'll go on record. Actually, 2 people said, I'll go on record like a week after the parade because I need to go through the debriefing so they hear it from me first. Are they not hearing it from you now? Respectfully, are they not hearing it from you now? And if I wait a week so you guys can do your debrief, I also have to wait another week because ethically I have to give Saro's office an opportunity to respond. So now that means I'm putting the story out, if I'm lucky, February 5th, February 3rd, something like that, between those 2 times. That's way too late. Like, that is way too late because who cares now? Honestly, who cares? And why would they? People who were going to go to the event already went. People who went that might not have gone still went. People who would have gone specifically because they wanted to see the work that you were doing behind the scenes, they didn't go because they didn't have any urgency in the situation. So I felt like, okay, this is the moment for me. This is the moment when I know it's time for me to bow out of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. parade. And I'm going to read one specific comment, or this is a text message that was sent to me. And I'm reading it because I think it's important to note just where the headspace is at, if you will. So this is a quote. This is a quote of a text message that was sent to me. It says, "It's as if you had a personal agenda and a deadline you needed to force without consideration." I absolutely do have an agenda. The truth is always my agenda, and my deadline is always in enough time where people can make an informed decision. So yes, I had an agenda and a deadline, and my consideration was for that truth and that deadline that allowed the public to make their own conclusions. And trying to say that I have damaged trust, which is what this text message said, saying I damaged trust because I wanted to stick to that timeline, again, so be it. So be it. So I posted a video. It was just on my story on Instagram, but it's still living on my TikTok. And I said, you know what? I'm a bow out because we are not trying to implement we should not be having these conversations still in 2026. Let me be clear about that. But we are certainly not trying to expedite the diminishing of these types of conversations. We are certainly not trying to say we're not doing this in 2027. We are not doing that. And so now I felt some type of way, right? So, but I still decided not to do the article because I was pressed by 3 individuals to not do the article. So I didn't. Anthony Holmes, you've probably seen him on this podcast before. He is founding a organization called the Coalition Against Anti-Blackness. He's doing his thing and he's trying to elevate Black people as well. So he posted something and he did his commentary. I'll post a link to that as well. I'm not going to read all of that. And I was going to leave it at that. But you know what? Since I had decided to not do a story, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and post my little one-off commentary on here and I'm going to be done with it. And this is what prompted this text message from this individual that said that comment damages, and if you're listening to it, I'm doing air quotes, it damages trust, and it made it seem like I had an agenda and a deadline without consideration. And so I was like, you know what? I ain't even gonna respond to this and I did delete the comment. I said I was going to delete it just to, I stand by what I said. I did say that. I said I will delete the comment, but just know I 100% stand by what I said. But then I received this comment on TikTok. And this was, of all the comments that I've received, this was the only one that made sense to me. It said, now this is in response to the video that I said I'm bowing out of Long Beach. And this person says, I wish you would reconsider that. While overall I agree with your point, it has been your messaging regarding this year's parade that is problematic. So that one made me take a step back because I'm like, you know what? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. So maybe I am a bit loopy. So I was like, let me take a beat and let me go look at my messaging from last year. So I'm going to post a link to that. I'm not going to read that whole story to you, but go check out that link because it is there. I did do a story about the debacle from last year. And then I went to the end of that story. Okay. And I'm going to read you. I'm not going to read you the whole story, obviously, but I'm going to read you the closing conclusion of that story. Although the MLK parade has long been a glaring example of Black erasure in Long Beach, the responsibility to uphold Black excellence and honor King's legacy cannot rest solely on Saro or any single political leader. Black leaders who remain silent while holding seats that could affect change bear some responsibility for the erasure and leaving the same problems for the next generation. King's legacy uplifts Black voices and inspires future generations. Anything less is a disservice to his memory and the fight for equality he championed. Okay, so obviously I didn't write a story, but I am going to read you the comment that I deleted so you know the messaging that I put forth, okay? And it says, this whole situation is disgusting, but to be fair, we don't have any strong Black leadership in Long Beach. I wanted to put out a story about this, but people either wanted me to wait until after the parade because they didn't want to discourage people from coming, or they didn't want to talk at all because it's, quote, better than it was last year, or they didn't want to go on record until a week after the parade, knowing that it's too late. I am done being a journalist. I'm not done being a journalist, but I am done being one in Long Beach. I can't fight for people who won't even speak up for themselves because they don't want to damage their proximity to power. Okay, so last year, I can admit that I added a lot of sugar and I was very gentle with how I put the messaging out there. And this year it was cayenne pepper and directness, but we are Black people. We should be able to take some seasoning and some directness. And I respectfully stand by what I said. Because if we had the strong Black leadership in Long Beach, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I don't know what else to say. And if it has damaged trust, then perhaps trust was never there. Perhaps it wasn't that you trusted me. Perhaps it was you thought you could use me to get out the narrative that you wanted when you wanted. Perhaps it was you didn't truly respect me as a journalist, nor did you respect my goal to make sure people are informed ahead of time so they can make proper decisions. Perhaps this isn't about trust. Perhaps this is about a lack of respect. And I say again, so be it. I'm Jackie Ray. Thanks for watching The Jackie Ray Show. I'll see you next time.
I've been laying low and getting to some plays with the bros. People hitting me about so and so, but say it ain't so. I've been out the way, I stay away from stunting the growth. Cause the pros got a pro, it's all under control. Moving militant, my soldiers, we all stick to the code. Sticks and stones.